Welcome to episode 6 of Surviving Opioids Beyond an Epidemic podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Simone. On this show, we talk about opioid addiction and we talk recovery. The guests are all folks with direct personal experience into the crisis. They research addiction, work in the therapeutic setting, some who have lost family members, and others who have personally lived through their own experience and are now thriving on the other side of the chaos. This show is for anybody who wants to know that although there's been a lot of tragedy, there's also a lot of hope. On today's episode, we have Jen Wylde. Jen is a national rock radio personality who struggled with addiction throughout most of her adult life. She fell into a career with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and after 30 years of trying to get sober, including a 2018 overdose in front of her son, she's now 3 years separated from the addiction. Jen works in the treatment industry. She started her own podcast about recovery and is passionate about carrying the message to anybody willing to listen. Jen was a great guest. She's an incredible storyteller, and I hope you guys get a lot from the conversation. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to episode 6 of Surviving Opioids Beyond an Epidemic podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Simone. On this show, we talk everything opioids, addiction, and recovery. My guest for today is Jen Wylde. You just heard her bio. She is a former rock radio personality. You'll know it by the voice. I'm jealous of that voice. She has her own podcast, Sober Exposure, that I was on last week, talking about California Sober. That episode will release probably like a week from today. This is being recorded the end of June. She has a great story. She's super passionate about sobriety, about recovery. And I know that you guys are going to appreciate her perspectives. Okay. She is abstinence-based recovery like I am. Last episode, we had my friend Rainey on, and he was talking about how marijuana helps him stay off opioids. And like I promised from episode 1 of this show, I'm going to give a voice to anybody who has in any way crossed paths with opioid addiction. You know, I'm not inviting everybody onto the show who did things exactly the way I did. Okay. That being said, you know, Jen and I were introduced to recovery through the same fellowship. We were brought up on the full abstinence, no matter what model of recovery. We're still doing that today. So Jen, you know, good to have you here. Thanks for being on.
Thank you so much. Opioids. And let's not forget my favorite drug, cocaine.
Cocaine.
Do I still belong?
Cocaine counts too. You can stay.
Okay. Thank you. As long as we crackheads are allowed to be here, then
you guys can stay.
All right. It's all good.
I've been on your podcast. Okay. Like I said, Sober Exposure. So I have an idea about, you know, you and what you're all about in terms of your recovery. But I don't know like a whole lot about your story, other than it's one of, like you say, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And you look and sound the part, by the way. I don't question you when you say that. So, can you tell the listeners a little bit about you, what you've been through, what got you here?
Sure. The reason why I look the part is because, it's not a part. It's who I was out of the box. You know, I just kind of, you know, a lot of families, when they're sitting around the dinner table, they're either talking about religion or they're talking about politics. In my family, my household, we were talking about rock and roll. I mean, not so much my mom and dad, not really, but it was my brother. Yeah. I had an older brother and he was very influential. My father was always off working. And it was just my brother and I in the basement. And my earliest memories as a child were in the basement listening to Kiss albums, you know, and listening to rock and roll. And I realized at a very young age that I hated school, kindergarten, and I loved boys. And that was my first drug of choice, boys in kindergarten. And so, you know,
you were a young bloomer.
Just very much so, you know, boys, rock and roll in kindergarten, hating school, rebellious, out of the box.
It
so
started early. I mean, if you're going to do it, just do it right out of the gate, right?
You know, exactly. So, my first memories, like, you know, we're laughing, but you know, it's just funny how we addicts are, because I just remember as a kid having that hole inside. I was brought up very upper middle class. I had everything I wanted. I was fine. I had friends on the block that I talk about this like almost every podcast I do, because it turns out I know where these girls are today. They're actually genius level. The two girls that were on my block that I rode my bicycles with, they were absolutely geniuses. And
where was this? California?
No, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio,
Okay.
home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Very good.
So I didn't know then that the girls that I was playing dolls with were going to grow up and be like genius level. Their IQs are genius. Like one's programming computer. I don't even know what she's doing. It's so smart. Like I don't even know. I can't even comprehend. But they own businesses. They're in computer programming. They're whatever. And I'm a rock and roll DJ. So just that's enough said there. So being that they were so brilliant and I was just average, I felt like I was always stupid.
Yeah.
Because these were the girls that I was hanging out with. And the other girl had long, beautiful, luscious brown hair. And I had Jewish frizzy hair, I mean, it's come a long way with the hair straighteners over the years.
Looks pretty blonde and straight to me.
So, I just never felt good enough. I always compared myself. And really, I was quite fine. But, I just had that alcoholic thinking.
And that's something that you hear from everybody, right? I mean, especially, you're talking about, being of the 12-step ilk, and you were kind of brought in that way. And if you listen to people talk, from the podium, and it's like, regardless of what drugs were in their, past, what specific experiences they had, that underlying feeling of comparing yourself to somebody else and coming up short, it just seems like that is, cuts through all of us. Have you noticed that?
Every single speaker meeting I go to, every speaker that I hear, it's like they always say, I just didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel good enough, and then as soon as I took that drink, I got that ease and comfort. And for me, it wasn't the drink. It was in 6th grade when I went to the dentist and I got the nitrous, and I took that, and I was getting a filling or something, and I went to the dentist and I got that, and I got that buzz for the first time. And I was like, oh my God, if this is what this is all about, then I'm going to definitely be an alcoholic. And I said this to myself in my head while I was getting high at the dentist, because he was trying to, do dental work on me. I knew
you knew what you were getting. Like, you knew that you were getting this, anesthetic that you could maybe even get like on the outside. Like, I'm asking because I remember having nitrous I had a lot of oral surgeries, but my mouth was all fucked up when I was younger, like all kinds of adult teeth pulled and a lot of crap. But I remember getting nitrous for one of those. I had general anesthesia for a couple, but then I started, it kind of turned into nitrous. And I remember getting, kind of being knocked out during this experience, not necessarily hating it, but I didn't really associate the fact that this is something that I could pursue on the outside. It just never, I don't know if nobody told me about it, if I didn't hear about nitrous. Now I end up doing nitrous later on,
of course, at all the Grateful Dead shows,
we in college and stuff, and some different, right. But I'm talking about back like, junior high, when I was getting these teeth pulled, maybe even in high school. I don't know. I just wasn't aware of it, but you were.
Right away. I was like, oh my God, I love this. I didn't attribute it to like, oh, I'm going to go get nitrous. What I said was, if this is what getting drunk feels like, if this is what marijuana feels like, whatever, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to find it, because I like the way this feels. I knew that my state of mind was altered, and I knew that I felt ease and comfort, and I felt good. I knew that I liked it.
Filled in. Those holes were filled in.
Yes, that hole was filled. Yes. So, going back a little bit to the rock and roll thing, like where I grew up and my brother and the music, we lived near a Marriott in Beechwood, Ohio. And where I lived, there was that hotel in bicycle riding distance. And me and my friends, those brilliant girls, and a couple other kids on the block, discovered at a very young age that when there were bands that would come to town, to the Cleveland Coliseum, they would stay at that Marriott. So at a very young age, I'm talking like 10 years old, we would ride our bicycles and we would hang out at that hotel all day until like the bands would come off the elevators with all of their gear to go to the show. We'd be like, hey, it'd be like Paul Stanley, or Mr. Elliott, Joe Elliott of Def Leppard, or, I mean, you name it. We met Springsteen, we met The Who, we met Pink Floyd, we met every single.
What was
band.
this, like the late 80s? That's kind of what I'm picturing. Or
this
was
early 80s. See,
okay,
I know I look young. I know.
Way back. Wow. I saw in your thing, by the way, in your IG bio, and I'll ask you about this later. It says fit over 50. I'm looking at it thinking, she ain't over 50. I'm gonna have to see a driver's license to confirm that one. But okay, fine. I'll take your word for it. We're talking early 80s. We're talking Springsteen. We're talking Def Leppard. You mentioned Kiss from the earlier back.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of them, Motley Crue, you name them, Van Halen. My dad kicked me off the Van Halen tour bus when I was 16. I was on the bus at 3 in the morning. Anyway, quite wild. I mean, that was later on. We started at 10, and then that hotel, as we got older and we matured, we grew up in that hotel, and then we'd end up in that hotel bar, and then we drink in that bar, and then it'd be all about the rock stars and the drinking and the done and drugs, and then the maitre d' at the hotel that worked in the bar, who was about 8 years older than me, became my boyfriend, and he liked cocaine. And so then in high school, you have an alcoholic cocaine addict that's chasing rock stars at 16. So that's
you're
what
16,
I say.
This boyfriend's 24. He has the connections to, whatever, like all the stuff that you haven't, that you've never really done cocaine. He's got the connect. You start doing it too, and things just take off.
Correct. Yeah. And, so, I mean, I knew that I had a problem even back then. I knew it. Like, I knew in my heart. And my father was an alcoholic as well. He was a workaholic. He wasn't the kind of alcoholic that abused us, or, I mean, I love my father. God bless his soul. He gave me everything. I was a daddy's girl. He gave me everything I wanted, but he was an alcoholic.
Now, is that alcoholic by his own admission, or is this by your diagnosis?
No, he died 20 something years sober. He got sober, and his own admission. I can't say that he worked the strongest AA program. He was one of those that went to AA when he felt like it. And I think a lot of times throughout his life, he was a dry drunk, but he did put down the alcohol, and he didn't drink for, the last 22 years of his life.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was an alcoholic, and he worked very hard. He was a traveling salesman. So I think a lot of the drinking was out of the house.
Okay.
When he was traveling, he was away.
And he was 20 some years, and he was 20 some years sober. And you said that he passed away 20 years ago. So, the majority of it.
No, he passed away about 12 years ago.
Okay. So then most of your childhood, he was actively drinking.
He was actively, yeah. But however, he was active, but he didn't drink in the house. He was a traveling salesman, so I didn't see a lot of it.
Okay.
A lot of it was but I knew, you just know, just like my son, when I was out in the hood doing my thing or whatever, when I was doing my drugs, or I might not have been using opiates and using cocaine right in front of my son's face. My son knew his mother was a drug addict.
Yeah.
So back to being a teenager, just because I knew my father I knew I had a predisposition to it. And even my mother used to say, Jennifer, you better be careful because your father's an alcoholic,
Yeah.
And so, it's genetic. And she used to tell me that. And, so it was kind of like, okay, what are you programming it? Are you putting that into the universe that I'm going to be an alcoholic? Thanks, Mom. So,
she wasn't though, right? She didn't have any issues like that. Your mom?
My mother died of codependency. She literally dropped out of codependency. And I've done a lot of work. I know that's really sad, but I'm just being really candid.
What do you mean? Like, you mean like heart attack kind of thing, or?
Like I was just getting over a bad relapse, and my mom was so codependent her entire life, between me and my addiction, my brother and his mental illness, and my father, and taking care of everybody, and being so severely codependent, caretaker, and also a little, she was the sweetest lady on earth. She was, she was so sweet.
For people that are just listening to this and that aren't watching it, she's doing the universal crazy signal.
Yeah. She was a little wacky, but she had other addictions. I mean, she definitely had like, she would make herself feel better by, what happened? Oh, you went out and got drunk and you were up all night doing drugs and you just got arrested and 3 DUIs and you lost your job. Let's go to Saks. Let's go shopping, not let's go have sex, but she would like that too. But no, yeah,
that's a topic answer, for another podcast.
Right. Yeah. But her answer to everything was like going to the mall, going shopping, getting just all shallow stuff, not dealing, getting her hair done, just all the typical Jewish mother things. And
I mean, it's interesting that you said that she dropped dead from codependency. I don't usually hear it described like that. But I did read a book from Gabor Mate, When the Body Says No. And it is, it is basically how chronic illness can really manifest. Like, you don't have to be addicted to drugs, right? To kind of have the same types of future experiences with poor health that a lot of us have. It can really play out this chronic caretaking kind of thing where you internalize it, like where maybe somebody who's addicted to drugs, it's going to be very obvious to everybody else watching, like what the problem is. But for other people, there is as much turmoil. It's just that you can't see it. Like if you were following her around with a video camera, she might look very normal and ordinary and low key, right? But like what's going on underneath the surface, like one of my friends says, the issues get stored in the tissues.
Oh, I love that. That's a great quote.
Yeah, take it.
I'm paying. That's going on my Instagram. I'll give you props and credit. But yeah, so let me tell you something.
Mike Gavoni, who I just had on 2 episodes ago, that was one of his lines. I love it.
It's so true. And you just gave me an idea for an entire show that we got to do is the fact that, yeah, she clearly was deteriorating and she just refused to get her own help. And literally all the years and everything, it just bogged her down. And I watched it happen. And then I relapsed. And that was it. That was the death of her. She couldn't. And then some other things happened as a result of my relapse. It's just, I'm not going to say it, not because I'm ashamed of it. It's just too boring. It's just such a long story.
Yeah.
But we all watched her deteriorate and then just boom. Yeah. Heart attack or stroke. We don't know exactly what it was, but she just boom, dropped dead. Sunday night, she's having Chinese food with her friends, with her little, cute little friends at the 55 and older community with, her cute nails and her outfit and her hair and everything. And next day, just dropped dead.
Wow.
Because she just couldn't take it. 3 years ago.
Okay. Were you actually sober? Because I know that you're 3 years.
Yes. 30. Yeah. I had 30 days sober.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did
so
she
it was
know
actually
that?
3.5. It was about 3.5 years ago. Yeah. She knew, but it still just took it. She kept.
Still though. Yeah. That's nice just to know that she knew, that you were on the right path, at least at that time. I mean, you might have been through that before where you've had a little bit of time and then kind of broke her heart, so to speak. But at least when that happened, you have that.
This is so weird it's so weird that it's turning out to be about this, but it's cool. It turns out, I noticed with these shows, it turns out to what it turns out to be, but it's just so weird because I was in treatment and I had 30 days and she was talking to my counselor. And she kept calling and saying, I don't feel like it was Memorial Day. And she's like, I feel like she's going to go out and use my counselors. Like, she's fine. She's doing great. She's got 30 days, and my mom's like, well, maybe, and maybe she'll get her radio job back. Maybe I see her on the microphone again. And literally that next day, I got a phone call from an old program director that I worked for asking me to work on the air for him, which was so bizarre. Wow. And like my son, every single person in her life, it's almost like she reached out to and talked to my son, some of her best friends, the day before she died. So that's crazy. And I've had some like mediums and stuff on my shows and we talk about all that. And so that's wild. But anyway, that's that. Codependency killed her. I've done a lot of work behind that. So that's why people are probably like, wow, she's so insensitive about it. I'm not insensitive about it. She was my best friend and it was really, really hard. And I don't blame myself. She never got her help. It was presented to her throughout her life, Al-Anon and what to do and how to deal with the addict. And she never got help. And I understand that's almost harder than for us, because as a mother now, if my son went out and was on drugs and using, I promise you, it would be very hard for me not to take care of him and to not rescue him.
And I don't hear that as being insensitive either. I understand that what you're saying, how, maybe it could be, but I'm the same way, where there are things, that were very, it's even traumatic, like in my own history. And I've talked about them so many times now that if you hear me tell these stories, it's almost like I'm like sort of reading a story out of a book where I'm talking about somebody else, just because I have processed through that particular thing so many times. I can tell that story now in a different way, maybe than the first 3 times, after I've told it 200 times, I'm not going to be full of tears, for example. Yeah. So that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing it as somebody who has talked about that before.
Yeah, I don't curl up in the fetal position anymore. After the 4th or 5th time, 6th, maybe after the 10th time, I stopped doing that. So crawling in the fetal position, talking about my mother's death.
It takes what it takes.
Yeah. So I mean, it's funny because every time I come on these shows, everyone wants me. Oh, so Jennifer, tell us about the rock and roll stories. Tell us about the tour buses. Tell us about how many rock stars you've slept with. That's what everybody wants to hear about. But it is what it is. I was an alcoholic. I was a drug addict. I wanted to hang out with rock stars. And when I was a senior in high school, I realized I guess I was beyond my years, because all of my friends were going to Ivy League colleges. And I ended up going to an Ivy League treatment center because I was like, I told my parents, I was like, you guys, listen, this ain't happening. I have a problem. And my mother, that sweet mother we're talking about, oh, what will the neighbors think? I can't, she can't go to treatment.
Yeah.
They're going to think, they're going to think it was me that did that. So she was like almost discouraging me going to rehab. And I knew I had to go. I knew it. I knew I had a problem. And this was the summer after we graduated high school. So I went to Minnesota, went to Minneapolis, went to treatment there, and didn't stay sober for long. It was summertime. Decided
when was this now? Like how old were
you? I needed to get 18. Okay. 18, right after high school. And I get out of treatment. I go into a halfway house and I had to get a job in the halfway house. So I decided it would be a good idea to go to a radio station and get a job as a promotions girl, like hanging banners at a radio station this summer. That'd be a great sober job, right?
Perfect.
Not such a great sober job. Yeah. In the, late 80s, hanging banners, going in and out of bars, rock clubs and stuff. But anyway, long story short, it introduced me to radio and I just kind of fell into the business. I found out that I had this love affair with the microphone that we got along really well. You have an awesome
radio voice, by the way. I said it at the top of this show, and I'll say it again as I'm listening to you talk. Because I just started this podcast not too long ago, and I feel like that's one of the. It's a very hard thing to teach, and you definitely have that.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, when I listen back to those old demos. It sounds like my voice is like, I sound like a little girl and I love it. It's so funny when you listen to it because my voice was completely different. I don't know if it's all the friggin' like Miley Cyrus says her voice is like that from all the partying. I don't know if it's that. But I'm like, KQRS. Hi, it's Jennifer Wylde. Like, I don't know how the hell I made it in the business.
Maybe it was the sound quality back then too. I don't know.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Like you have like that awesome mic. Oh, by the way, do you see which mic I'm using now? I got the same one.
Turn it around. Is that the short? Did you get the short?
I got it. I got the same one that you were just telling me about.
Dude, I saw that. I was like, is that just a really good stand?
Nah.
Oh my gosh.
I did it. You actually sold me on it. The Joe Rogan mic.
Yeah. How did I not catch on to it? I saw that it looked amazing and I didn't want to sound stupid. Like I wanted to say, if that mic looks that good for the $50 mic he was telling me about, then I got ripped.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no, this was the well, I actually told my wife that I got the same mic that Joe Rogan uses, and she said, "Who's Joe Rogan?" That's what she said. I said, we're not the same. We are not the same.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so you're talking about going into treatment when you're 18 years old, and then you got sober 3 years ago, okay? And then you told me that you're fit over 50. Okay, so I'm doing I was a math whiz when I was younger, okay? So
right.
so I'm pairing these numbers up really quickly. 30 years
Yeah.
you're playing this game, right? This game of knowing deep down that you should be sober, but you're either not willing, or you don't want to, or you're trying to but you can't, whatever the issue, kind of whatever the deal
trying
is.
to but you won't, trying to but
you won't,
you just refuse to admit to your innermost self that you're alcoholic.
Okay, so that was part of the thing, right? So when you were 18 and they brought you to this facility, and they're telling you, I assume that they showed you the 12 steps, and they're telling you to admit, you're powerless and that your life is unmanageable, and you're 18. Now, I've also noticed that it's very hard for 18-year-olds to admit that, but are you just thinking, for the next 10, 15 or more years, are you thinking like that you really don't have a problem, that you just need to figure out how to do it? Or you knew from the beginning that, you're not just going to figure it out, but you're going to do it anyway?
See, it came in waves, and our disease tells us we don't have it. So, I always knew deep down inside that I could not use. I always knew I can't handle anything from day one. The first time I got drunk, I mean, for those of you that can see on YouTube, I wish that we could like close up here, but I have a scar right here on my neck from the first time I ever got drunk, blacking out. I'm not even sure how I got it. Like, I've never been able to use anything at all. That's why the California sober thing pisses me off so much, because I can't do it. I mean, I can't use anything, period. That's just not the kind of friggin' addict I am. I've tried for 30 years to figure this out, and I can't, So I've been in and out of institutions my entire friggin' life, in and out, and it comes in waves. So my disease will trick me, and it'll tell me, I'll be doing great. And then it'll just like sneak up, like, okay, I don't have to do this or slowly I'll just start lying to myself, or I'll just get a little dishonest.
Feathering the nest.
Yeah. And then the next thing you know, I'm using. So I'm doing it different now. And then there was something that was very pertinent that happened to me that I believe is what was the last straw. First of all, I ain't no spring chicken anymore. And I'm just free, listen, in AA, because I am at my core, I believe in the AA values, and I do believe in one day at a time. I'm never going to say I'm never going to use again. I'm not going to say any of that. However, I will say that I'd never surrendered before, and I finally surrendered. I don't think I ever did that first step.
So something felt different this time. I mean, because I described it like that too, where it's not like I heard anything necessarily new, 5 years ago, but but something felt different about the whole thing. And yeah. I mean, I guess surrendering could be one way to describe it.
Well, and then I could get really, really woo-woo on you guys. And so here's the thing. So in my addiction, a lot of really shitty things have happened to me. Okay. Like arrests, my mug shot all over the city. Like I was up for, okay. So I lost a job, not due to my addiction, just getting laid off, whatever, budget cuts, whatever, a big, huge job that meant the world to me. But I did have kind of a reputation of being like a prima donna or whatever. So it was hard for me to get a job because people did know that I was Jen Wylde, and Jen Wylde is kind of difficult. So this chick was like, I knew her well. She loved me as a person deep down, and she knew I was very talented. And so she said, listen, I'm going to give you a shot. I'm going to give you a shot because I know who you really are. I'm give you a shot to come on the air. Don't fuck me over, girl. I'm going to give you a chance to work at this family station, this major market in Miami. And I'm going to give you your second chance here.
Mm.
And the day before I went on the air, I got arrested for possession of cocaine, and my mugshot was all over the city of Miami and Palm Beach County, my entire area. It was like plastered everywhere. Mugshot.
That's like a story out of the AA book also. Like that story of you know, things are going well, you know, you're kind of cleaning it up a little bit. You're about to have this major engagement, something positive, you know, like not something negative, something positive is about to happen. And then you just pull the whole thing down.
Shoot yourself in the foot. You get in your own way, shoot yourself. Yeah. Yeah. And it was really humiliating. And like, it was probably the worst day of my life because people are calling me up and it's all over the internet, this terrible picture. And, you know, and this? Then, about 7 years ago.
Oh, okay. So relatively recently. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is like, people are so mean. They just love to see people fail. And people are making memes about it, you know, like, oh, when's Jennifer Wylde not going to be wild? And, you know, putting that was even nice. That wasn't even, you know, just mean all over the internet, spread all over. I thought my life was over. I really did. I thought my life was over. And the sad thing is my son years later told me that he saw all that, you know?
Wow.
So there was that. I used after that, of course. Locked in sheds. I mean, just like cars stolen, hurt people.
What do you mean locked in sheds? What does that mean?
Just things like in the wrong kind of neighborhoods, being held hostage in certain places with, like some bad stuff.
Where it takes us sometimes.
Yeah. My disease has taken me down. So, but I'd still use. Okay. My organs were shutting down and I was hospitalized. I still used. Yeah. So fear doesn't keep us sober. Consequences, there's always still a consequence. This last time I woke up in an ambulance and my pulse stopped and it was the opiates. I believe there was fentanyl in it. And
what do you mean?
I died.
What do you mean? Like you bought what you thought was heroin and it turned out to be fentanyl? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Okay. Because I didn't hear. Yeah. I just didn't hear the opiates come into your story yet. That's why I'm saying, you know, you're talking about cocaine and alcohol, marijuana earlier. So I'm assuming that over that time, at some point, did you become addicted to it, or was this just you know, sometimes you would party? I mean,
listen,
and sometimes you would take this.
I'm a garbage can. I'll do anything. And there was a point years ago, like when I was in my early 30s, that I did have my opiate thing where that was like a thing big time with the oxys, and then you couldn't get the oxys anymore. So then I went the streets and I did heroin. But this time I was using cocaine and I couldn't stop using cocaine. So I had the brilliant idea, to come down, let me use some heroin to come down because I'm so bright. We're all chemists.
Well, so that makes perfect sense to me anyway. I mean, and most people like us, you know, I mean, look, it actually would not make sense to me if somebody, you know, if somebody is a purely, say, like a stimulant addicted person and they're just using stimulants all the time and they didn't also, you know, take Xanax at the end of the night or opiates or something, that wouldn't make sense to me. I would think, man, like, are you a masochist? Well, you're just going to naturally let the cocaine wear off at some point, you know, and just, if you sleep, sleep.
Yeah, this has been like 3.5-4 days. I was done. I'm like, all right, so come on, it's time. So give me the friggin' opiates. And because of the fact that I was not really an opiate person, my body was like, and then I started liking it, and I just was doing a little bit more and more and more, and then boom, boom, boom. So
were you injecting it like at this point, smoking it, like snorting it?
Snorting it.
Because you're in Cleveland at this point, right?
No. I was here.
Okay.
This was the last time I used. This was 3.5 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, because they have powder out here. You know, I talked to people like when I was in California, for example, like they didn't have powder. It was all tar. So
the black tar. Yeah.
So you're either injecting it or you're smoking it. You know, there's no other way.
Yeah.
But, okay, go ahead.
Yes. It was down here. This was my last use. This was the last time I used 3.5 years ago. When I overdosed, and what I believe, because the thing that I was saying is sure, you can have all the consequences in the world, but this is like, I feel like when I died, it was almost like that old soul kind of just like was pulled out of me. And I was just like kind of reborn with a new soul, because when I came back, it was almost like a new Jen. Like, I still get compulsions to use, but when I used to get the compulsions to use, there was like nothing. It was like, I don't care. I'm going to use, like, it was just different. Now they're fleeting thoughts.
Yeah. So
And it's just everything about me has been different since that happened.
I actually feel
My
like
whole-
that too. And I talk about that with like somebody died kind of thing. I sort of use those same kind of words. Like, it does feel like somebody died. Now, like, the difference is I don't feel like it was one person died and then this new guy came right on top. I feel like there was no soul, for me anyway, for this long period of time where I was just this kind of wandering ball of nothingness. And that was even worse in a lot of cases. But I know that that's not everybody's experience. Everybody, does not just roll around in that kind of desert space, like I like to describe it. But you had this experience where finally something just felt different. And then, did you just dive right into it from the beginning? Like, were you just, you were back into the 12 steps, I'm assuming at this point, right? This is 3 years ago, you're on the East Coast.
Yeah,
and you're
3.5 years ago. Yeah.
3.5 years ago.
What happened was, well, first of all, also back in that back to the overdose and the dying in the hospital and all that, and the new soul and everything. We talked a lot about my mother, and I do believe that my mother was there and had a lot to do with that as well. And I just want to say that people might think I'm weird and all that, but it has a lot to do with it for me. Is it's spiritual for me, and I feel like when she was alive, I was never able to get sober. And I feel like she's really helping me. I do feel like she's really helping me. And so I got out of the hospital and I went to a meeting and I raised my hand and I said, and actually, like, I knew everybody in the AA community, but I had just moved to a new area too. So I didn't really know anyone in the AA community. I raised my hand and I said, my name's Jennifer and I need fucking help. And I said the F word. I didn't just say my name's Jennifer. I said, I need fucking help. I just OD'd. Yeah, I just OD'd. And then this is how weird, like, the universe is. Cause I told you I had just moved to a different area, probably about 60 miles north of where I had lived. And I see this girl. And she's like, Jennifer. And it was a girl that I knew very, very, very well for years from where I just moved from. And she's like, I never come to this meeting. I just am here. And she hugged me and I was like 4 days sober. And she was like my rock for the first couple months. Wow. And I just kept going back to meetings. And before we recorded, I admitted, I said, like, right now, I feel like I shouldn't even be talking about AA. I work in treatment. I'm around addicts all the time. I'm working on my podcast. I've got my 16-year-old son and I'm really scared because I feel like, I do a lot of other stuff. And what got me through also was went deep into meditation too. Meditation is very big for me, and my Reiki and my crystals, that all is so key to my recovery that I really didn't do so much before. Or there's been times where it was only the Reiki and recovery and no AA. So there's got to be like the sweet spot between all of it. And right now, I need to really tell on my disease. I got to friggin' get my ass moving with AA, because I'm not California sober. I'm not one of those chicks that can not, have AA. I need it. I need the fellowship. I need the program. I need it.
Yeah.
I need it.
Well, I'm the same way, actually, in terms of it kind of comes and goes. In terms of, like, exactly what I was doing at a month or at a year or at this, like, there's times where I feel more plugged in, times where I feel like a little bored, and it always kind of comes and goes. I have a basic home group that I make every week. We go to this rehab every Sunday morning, I'm always there. So that's kind of like the cornerstone. I sort of see my guys on Friday. We take a meeting into a detox on Sunday morning, and then everything like around that, it changes. There's times where where I feel like I have more time. It is hard. One thing though, I'm actually not nearly as hard as I am on myself as I used to be. I'm not. I used to really be like, oh my God, this is just my disease trying to, pull me back into this. I don't really see it like that anymore. I just don't. I see it as I check my intentions, and like when I know that my intentions are right, and like when I know, look, I have a 3 and a 5-year-old at home. All right. Somebody has to, prepare dinner and clean up dinner, and there's things that are breaking around the house, and someone's got to give them a bath at night and put them to bed and read them books. And there are things, when I was first getting sober, I was able to be gone for hours every night. And we would drive an hour away, go to a rehab, stay there for an hour, hang out for an hour, drive like an hour home. So it would be like a 5-hour night. But now that I have like these little kids that need me here, it does not look the way that it did in the beginning. I used to feel guilt about that. I just don't anymore. It's not that I feel that I don't need things that I did before. That's not it at all. I still need fellowship, and I need community. And like I said, I have these kind of cornerstones in place that this is still the kind of keystone of my recovery, but I don't feel it like really beating myself up over not doing the best that I can, like at any given moment.
Right. When your intentions are there. I mean, all right, you want me to get really real with you? I was going to go to a meeting today. My nail broke. I was like, I have to get my nail done. But that's the mother in me. Do you remember I told you about my mother and how she was always so, that's my mother,
having to give little kids a bath or breaking your nail. I should have said that. Those are the two legitimate excuses. So you're fine.
Did I just really tell you guys that? I did, didn't I? I just really told you guys I did not go to a meeting when I didn't. But it's still early enough.
Here's me on the sign co-signing everything you're saying. It's totally fine. If you break the other nail, skip it again. All right. You don't ever have to. Make sure your nails are fine.
Just hold a crystal. You'll be fine. Just hold a crystal. No, it doesn't work that way. I know. I have to go to a meeting today. It's still early. I'm laughing because it's still early enough. Now, it's not freaking funny. If I don't go to a meeting today, I have to go to a meeting today. I do. I know. I feel it in my soul. Like I feel it that I do.
Yeah. I know what you're describing. Well, okay. So you just mentioned you mentioned crystals again. I said at the beginning, you and I were introduced to recovery in a similar way. We were both kind of brought up on the abstinence only kind of deal. Now, one thing that we do not have in common, and I saw like on your little kind of bio is about the crystals. I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about Reiki crystals. Can you? I assume that you feel strongly enough about it to have it listed in your bio. What's the deal with the crystals? Can you enlighten me?
Yeah. Okay. So since I was like young, not only was I chasing tour buses, but also I had this fascination with, I don't know, like kind of metaphysics. I was brought up Jewish, and it was in Hebrew, and it was really boring, and I didn't understand what any of it meant. And I was like, ugh. So I had to find something. And I just always really like felt energy from crystals, and I was just really like fascinated with anything that had to do with metaphysics. And so I didn't really know what they were either. I didn't know what I was feeling, but I knew that I loved the energy I got when I held like an amethyst. And it turns out that amethyst crystals are in the ancient days, they use that to help alcoholics to stay sober. And in the word, it means something that means like something that has to do with sober. I'm going to sound really stupid right now because I don't have my notes in front of me, but there's a like word that means sober in the word amethyst. And that's why they use amethyst. They used it back in the day to help people to stay sober. So anyway, there's an energy because they come from the earth. They're like, crystals are like pets to me, and they all mean something. And they're connected to your chakras. Okay. So the human body has chakras. We have chakras, which are energy fields. And I mean, we could do a whole thing on this. So I use my crystals and I work with my crystals with my chakra system, and I meditate with them. And then I open up my chakras, and that's how it balances out my physical body. And it helps me because I'm also a little bit bipolar and I got some ADD going on, and I got a lot of all that crap going on. And so it's almost sort of like when you go to an acupuncturist and you hit this and it makes you feel balanced. That's what my crystals do for me. And I guess in layman's terms, that's how you can describe it.
So it's part of your meditation practice.
Very much so, part of my meditation practice. Absolutely. And I mean, I could feel like psycho crazy and hold the crystal and just feel the energy. And then every crystal has a certain element that is attributed to something else. Like if you have a citrine crystal, that is in that goes with your solar plexus, and it's yellow, and it's like a happy energy, and it's abundance. It means abundance. So if I feel like I need abundance in my life, I'll pick that up and I'll do a meditation on abundance. And I mean, it's just really, it sounds so woo woo, it sounds so ridiculous, but it really, you talk about manifestation, it does manifest all that in your life. It really does. And the Reiki, if you don't believe any of this, you got to do Reiki. Now, I got to tell you about Reiki. How I really, really got into all this. This is what happened. When I first moved down to Florida, I was walking down Atlantic Avenue in Delray. And that's a street where there's like a lot of restaurants, and there's a lot of, I'm sorry not to be able to even think or talk right now, but after I've been talking so long. But anyway, so there was a crystal store, and I was with my girlfriend, who happens to be, she's not with us anymore. God bless her soul. Her name was Star Bright. She was a Southern girl. Her mother was a hippie. She named her Star Bright. And Star she just liked to go shopping, and she liked her Louis Vuittons, and she didn't like anything that had to do with anything spiritual. And she did not like my crystals. But we walked by and we saw, and we just gotten out of treatment together, and we saw this crystal store. I'm like, oh my God, Star, we have to go. She's like, I don't want to go into a crystal store. I'm like, come on, let's go. So we walked in, and I'm like in heaven. I'm touching all these crystals, and I'm feeling, and I didn't know anything about Reiki at that time. I didn't know what Reiki was. And so this was like 1997, maybe. Okay. And so the lady walks up, she goes, there's a Reiki circle in the back room. Do you guys want to join us? And I'm like, a what circle? A whaty circle? And a Reiki circle. And my friend said, I don't want to go. I'm like, what is it? They're like, well, it's like a form of, it's universal energy. It's energy healing. And if you like your crystals, then you're going to love this. I'm like, I want to try it. And so my friend finally, she's like, I got her to do it. And we go and we sit in this big circle, and we close our eyes, and they bring us into this meditation. And all of a sudden we're like, and our eyes are closed, and there's somebody behind us, and they're not even touching us. They're like going like, if you're just listening, they have their hands on our, like on top of our head, but not touching us. And we're like twitching, and my friend's doing the same thing. And then you feel these tingles and this heat and this beauty and this love and this energy and all that stuff I talked about at the beginning of this, about that hole that you were trying to fill with alcohol and drugs. I felt with the Reiki. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Holy shit. Wow. And then I felt like I was like falling, and I had this like, I can't even explain the feeling. And I got to tell you, I went to do the circle again, and none of that happened. So there was some kind of magic in that particular circle. But my friend had the same experience. But I don't want to say none of it happened. It just wasn't quite as intense. But Reiki is universal energy. Anybody can do it. Anybody has it. It's not something that you're born with. It's not like some intuitive people that like are like, I see dead people, and you have to be born with that. Anybody can do it. Anybody can receive it. Anybody can give it. And if you don't believe in it, you have to try it. Everybody feels it differently, but if you have a problem with spirituality, I would suggest going and getting some Reiki, because you can't deny it. You can't deny the Reiki because you can feel it. And it's like sort of like if you rub your hands together real fast, and then you go like this, you could feel the energy. You could feel that energy. It's almost like that. Another way I describe Reiki is the love aspect is if your son or daughter falls and skins their knee, right away you put your hand on the knee to make the knee feel better, right? Well, that's soothing, right? That's love. That's Reiki. That's Reiki. And I mean, it's so much more intricate than that, but Reiki is my miracle. You can do it on yourself. You could do it on other people. You could do it with meditation music. You could do it with crystals. You could do it without crystals. You could Reiki on your crystals. And I know I sound like a total kook right now, but
no, I'm listening and I'm following along with this. You're selling me. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah. And you can also like go on YouTube and you can do distant Reiki. Like, I don't think it's as powerful, but there's like Reiki YouTubes and stuff that you can do. And because Reiki it's universal energy and it's brilliant energy too. So you could do distant Reiki. It's really hard to comprehend in your brain that you can do distant Reiki. And they teach, like, I'm a Reiki 2. I'm not a Reiki master yet. That's like, I still have to get my Reiki master, but I'm a Reiki 2. And that's when they teach you how to do distant Reiki through visualization. And I mean, it's hard to buy that, but I feel it. I know it. It's there. And if you're interested, if anybody's interested in that, we'll tell you how you can get in touch with me, and I'll get you in touch with the right places to go to get further into Reiki, because Reiki really did save my ass. AA saved my ass, but Reiki and meditation, I gotta tell you, number one.
Well, I think you're probably selling, a lot of people on that. I mean, that was a great description. That's what I wanted to hear. I didn't know anything about it. I saw this, I saw a couple of posts where you're talking about it, a little bit, but you need to hear somebody describe something. I actually had a kind of a similar experience. Like when I first did breath work, in terms of the very first time, was this, powerful experience. And the next time I didn't have that exact same experience, but I knew that there was something in here that got unlocked that, even though I intuitively didn't think that this should be working for me, I couldn't deny the experience. I couldn't deny what actually happened. But we're kind of getting to the end. There's a couple things that I want to, I saw, like I said, on your IG bio. Okay, it says 50 over, fit over 50. I said I didn't really believe you. I might need some verification of that. I just saw like a video of you deadlifting. Okay, I think you were deadlifting like hundreds of pounds, and weightlifting is something that I talk about a lot. Weightlifting specifically, it like routinely performs well in like clinical studies. Like when we look at that kind of compared to different exercise approaches in terms of like releasing the most endorphins and promoting the most feel-good chemicals, the anti-aging benefits. But for some reason, a lot of people, in particular, a lot of women, shy away from the heavy weights. Like, were you always into working out the way that you are now with like heavier weights? How does fitness play into your recovery?
Okay, so on and off. So when I was 25 and I worked at a big radio station in Cleveland, I did an endorsement with this trainer, and he introduced me to lifting. And he was like, listen, you are skinny fat. You're 5'6", you're like 110 pounds, and you're flabby, and you have cellulite, and you are going to
I don't think that's something that we can say anymore, huh? The skinny fat, that's not very 2021-ish.
Right, no, right. You're in ectomorph or whatever. What's it? There's...
Yeah, I know where you're...
whatever it is.
Different
body. So, right.
Whatever.
Yeah. So, and then he said to me, he goes, so look around at the gym, okay? And look at the chicks that are on the treadmill and that are in the spin class. Look at their body. And then look at the women that are lifting the weights and look at their body and see which one which ones look better, And so I did. And I noticed the ones that were in the spin class were a little bit, they were flabby and they were like spinning and spinning and spinning and huffing and puffing and puffing and huffing and puffing, and nothing against spinning. But anyway, I started lifting weights with this guy and I really noticed my body changing. So, I mean, being an addict, of course, on and off, on and off, on and off. But as soon as I got sober this time around and this happened again, the first thing I did was hire a trainer. Now, I had just overdosed, and when I overdosed, I broke a few ribs because when they were performing CPR, I broke ribs also. So I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan and I love John Bonham, the drummer. And so I wanted to, like, I guess, emulate him. So he died choking on his throw up and I choked on my throw up. So aspirated. So I got pneumonia. Wow. That's my joke. But so I was in really bad shape. I couldn't even like jog down the block when I started working out with this guy. And here it is, a couple years later, we still work out together. And oh God, you saw that deadlifting video. He got so mad because he wasn't there. He was like, that form was terrible. You're trying to show off. He got so mad at me. But
no,
but
you're killing it.
Yeah. I love lifting weights and I love lifting heavy. And what I want to say to women out there is, like, they're so afraid that they're going to get big, but like, we just don't have, unless you're taking like steroids or something like that, like, we're not going to get big. And if you're over 50, you need to lift weights. You need to for your bones. You need to for osteoporosis. I can't even tell you the importance of the weight training. Cardio for your heart, absolutely. I'm not saying that I don't do cardio, and my trainer's big on cardio, and I get pissed when it's cardio day. And
a lot of weightlifting is also cardio, though. Like if you're following your heart rate, you know, if you're doing intense weight training,
absolutely.
your heart rate's kicking up. Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah, it is. Oh yeah. You don't have to tell me that after I'm doing friggin' heavy squats, 5 sets.
Totally.
Holy shit. But yeah, weight training is like, that's another thing that, has been very pertinent to my recovery, and it's everything. It's everything. It's so to me, it's all the perfect storm. I need AA, I need my meditation, I need my weight training, and I need accountability. And that's, I think, where I'm falling short right now, where I feel like I'm a little scared, is I feel like I'm not being accountable, and I need to really work on that. That's why I need to get to a meeting. And I'm just being honest, just keeping it real with you guys, you know.
Well, I said to you that I actually feel the exact same way right now. And I mean, very similar. You know, you're raising your son, you're starting this podcast, you're figuring out like that kind of stuff. I'm doing the same thing, right? I'm starting a podcast, I'm running some other little things, learning video editing, a lot of things that are tedious, that are new, and that are time consuming. Okay. And what happens sometimes now, as long as we're aware of that, and as long as we're aware that, this stuff should be temporary, and I know that I need to go back to whatever kind of keeps me balanced, so like in your case, if it's fellowship, right? Or, if it is like the friendships inside those groups, the communities, talking with like newer people, that really kind of keeps us going. If we feel that we're not doing that, and then we're feeling off the beam, just being aware of the fact that we have to get back to it, I think that is half the battle, versus thinking like, maybe, I'm doing like a lot of stuff with some other projects right now. I don't really need that stuff quite as much. Like, I don't hear that in you. I just hear right. You've been off for a couple of weeks, but that you have to get back.
Yeah, I do. And I do have a little bit, they say there's something, they say the Jewish guilt. I have a little of that AA guilt, because they say whatever you put before your recovery, you're going to lose. Yeah. And you know what? I guess I am a little old school, because I do believe that. And I put my broken nail before my recovery today. But
well, it's only,
it's okay. I'm laughing because
you're on East Coast time. It is 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Where are you? Are you in the New York area? Did I ask you that already?
No, I'm in Florida.
Oh, you're in Florida. Okay. All right. So you're in Florida. That's probably one of the, I got first introduced in Southern California, and there's like 3,000 meetings a week out there. I assume Florida is probably like not far behind it.
I got a meeting every 15 minutes right down the street from my house. I'm fine.
So, breaking your nail at 12 p.m. noon on a Friday on your day off. Yeah. I was co-signing you before. Now I'm going to say to you, if you want to make the meeting, then I'm sure that you'll be able to figure it out.
I'm going to the 5:30, and the 5:30 is a really good meeting. It's a good meeting. So,
look, I mean, I love hearing about this kind of stuff. These episodes always go quick, like I'm always thinking, oh, am I going to have enough to talk to somebody about? And then it gets to be, 45 minutes in, and I think, oh crap, I have 6 more topics that I want to talk about. So, that'll, like I say to some people, that might just set us up for a part 2 somewhere down the line.
Yeah, it means I have to come back. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. And then next time you can have had broken the other nail and then tell me about some other meeting that you just missed, and we can talk about that.
Yeah. And you guys can hear on my show, because you're on my show, and it's gonna by the time this airs, I don't know if it'll be dropped or not. It'll probably be dropped already. So Sober Exposure is my podcast where we talk about all kinds of interesting stuff.
Yeah, no, your podcast is great. Like I said, I mean, your voice, you have the voice for it. This whole podcast thing that's been exploding over the last few years. You were preparing for this your whole life, and I think that your presence there, coupled with your experience, it really sets you up to be a great host. Jen, it's been really good talking to you. I love talking to opioids, and I love talking recovery. That you've clearly put in the work. And you put your recovery first. It seems to be very hard for anybody to break free from the grips of like a serious drug dependency, drug addiction, if they're not all in on the recovery part. However that looks, like the recovery might look different, right? But just being fully committed to recovering, all in on taking the action needed to sustain this new life, because anybody can muscle through a withdrawal period at a detox or like a rehab center. It might be painful. It might be painful, but you can do it. It's very safe and it's controlled, and we're doing well. Western medicine has done a good job of getting people off this stuff. We're just not doing a good job of keeping people off, and I say it, like, recovery happens in the trenches of everyday life. What we're doing in that little nitty gritty, that's what makes all the difference. So I appreciate you and your work. You want to tell everybody where they can find you? You said Sober Exposure Podcast.
Yep. Sober Exposure Podcast. Instagram is Sober Exposure. I always forget it. It's Sober Exposure _podcast. That's it. Sober Exposure _podcast. Yeah. Sorry, it's like your own phone number. You never call yourself. You know what I mean? So that's why it's so hard.
And they change once in a while too.
Yeah. All right. So awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, Jen. Let's talk soon.
All right, babe. Bye-bye.
Bye.